Hello, everyone. It takes a while for it to kind of like catch up. Um, while it's catching up, I actually should, um, Jessica and Kathleen, I'm about to post the next clue since I didn't do that yet. Um, we're doing a scavenger hunt, Bree,
Yeah, I saw that vaguely. Vaguely saw it.
and because we share some of the same patrons, um, very competitive group.
Oh yeah, very, very. I wish
Very
I knew how to do games with my patrons. I would totally do it. I just don't know what to do or how to do it.
Just think of any games that you know and then think about how you can make them digital. That's all I do.
How do you make Uno digital?
Give me a second to think on that, and I probably could figure something out for you, to be honest.
Yeah.
This one should be fun though. Creator is well. Hello everyone. I hope you enjoyed your reading experience. For this live show, we are going to be discussing The Delicacy and Harrow County Omni 1. Although finishing Omni 1, I low key want to start Omni 2 because I'm very curious to see where the creators are going to take this. I didn't realize until today that this was an Eisner nominated one, Bree. These were all Bree's picks, by the way.
The next one, uh, yeah. Me and my
Mhm.
aura.
Yeah, and they were both horror in their own way. I think one more obvious, um, one more obvious than the other.
I will say this. For the comics, it's our second year, right?
This is our second year.
Damn, that's quick, ain't it?
It
Um,
was a good 2 years.
quick. This is our second year. I'm really liking the horror picks I've chosen.
It's definitely up your alley.
hmm And I also want to be transparent, everyone. I thought we were reading crossover volume one and two, so I have not read Harrow County and the Delicacy, but I am reading as we are talking. And what I will say, you Ashley probably already knows this. Love the art.
For which one?
Um, Harrow County.
Yes, I do love the art. The artwork in Harrow County is great. I did not like the
Love the art.
Delicacy's artwork.
You didn't like the Delicacy artwork? Okay.
I did not like the Delicacy's artwork. I was not a fan of that um, at all. Okay, so let's start off. Um, let's start off with ratings. Tell me first what you would, for those of you who have read it, if you're just here to hang out, welcome. If it's your first time here, this is my other channel that you're seeing me on, which is the Realm of Comics, um, which is where I discuss primarily comics, graphic novels, and manga. If you read it, tell me your rating. Um, for the Delicacy, we'll start with the Delicacy, and then we'll switch over to Harrow County. For me, I'll start. The Delicacy definitely had an interesting. I got the messaging behind the Delicacy, but the artwork was just not my favorite in terms of especially character style. I was not a huge fan. I wasn't The inking wasn't bad. I didn't mind the more subtle, like color palette chosen, but I was not a fan of the character drawing at all.
I'm looking at it in set in Scotland.
Hmm.
Um, sorry, digging my nose in public. I'm looking at it. It kind of, I don't know if anybody in the chat is familiar with Manet. Are you familiar with Manet?
Monet, Monet,
With an A.
Monet with an A.
Yeah, he's
The
one of my
art.
favorite painters of all time.
Okay, 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 okay.
Yeah, let me show you. This style kind of reminds me of that. I don't know if you can see that.
Oh yeah, yeah. See, I think my issue is that the characters always felt like they were kind of like leaning, like they looked very distorted.
Yeah,
And so it took
very
me.
much, very much Manet.
Yeah, yeah. It was not my style of artwork. So I'm seeing 3 stars, 3.5. Yeah, characters were drawn weirdly. Delicacy was a 3 star for me, kind of felt flat. Artwork wasn't the best. Yeah. Okay. So I guess we should talk a little bit about what the Delicacy is. Um, it is a standalone graphic novel, and it follows these two brothers who live with their mother, who is a practicing witch, which I thought was very interesting, from Scotland. Something mysterious happens to their aunt and uncle, and they're granted um, property at their left property for their estate from their estate, which takes them to London. One of the brothers is a gardener. The other wants to be wants to own his own restaurant. He's a chef. He cooks. Gets there, finds out it's much more difficult, and then there's these mysterious mushrooms that appear. I will say the interesting thing about this graphic novel for me was that I did not expect that twist that kind of came in. Bree, we're probably going to spoil you here, so if you want to mute me, you can. Okay.
Whoa.
So I wasn't expecting the twist where the mushrooms were growing because of dead bodies. That is what kind of like that's what turned it to a darker, gave it darker tone, because when I first started reading it, I was like, oh, I said, okay, I love foodie based stuff. I love to eat. So I was very much so into this idea that maybe we were just going to be following this guy that opens up a restaurant and the ups and downs of moving to a bigger city and opening up a restaurant and competing against other restaurants. I didn't read the description of it really. I kind of wanted to go into it with not a lot of background knowledge. This is Bree's pick. I didn't really know much about it. So when we find out that these magical mushrooms, which I thought the mushrooms are going to be like shrooms at one point, I was like, oh gosh, you're going to eat them and everybody's going to be high. But then it brings him so much success. And we find out that the mushrooms are coming from dead bodies. That I will say is probably why it was more so like a 3.5 for me, because I feel like that was a hell of a twist. But I think after that twist came for me, I kind of saw where the story was going, especially when the brother who was a chef became extremely desperate for his brother to figure out how to continue to grow these mushrooms. And he was willing to literally do anything to make these mushrooms grow. I kind of got the correlation to um, wealth and greed and losing yourself in wealth. It became very, very obvious. It was kind of like on the nose, kind of, in my opinion, a little too well done, to the point that it lost that mystical, metaphorical part of it that I thought we would be able to work with a little bit more. Um, yeah, it was, yeah, Jessica, it was a very interesting um, twist. But for me, it wasn't enough to actually save the graphic novel as a whole. I do think that it was interesting watching his demise, and when we got to the conclusion of what would happen, I felt really, really bad for the brother. And kind of in some ways, his mother was not lying about how twisted and dark being in the city was. She was very much so, um, stay in the country. It's better out here. It's healthier. We live off the earth. Everything is well balanced out here. You get to the city and things are just completely uh, ridiculous. And so I think that she was kind of right. And when I thought about it after finishing it, I was like, there's a bit of foreshadowing that happened in there. But I think that once you kind of got the hint that I think once it was revealed that the bodies were the reason why the mushrooms were able to grow, it kind of was like, okay, that we pretty much are going to know at this point that the brother that owned the restaurant was going to do whatever was possible to maintain these mushrooms because that's what made his restaurant supposedly stand out. But I do think that a lot of the stuff after that was just a little too on the nose for me in terms of like, okay, this is pretty obvious. He's going to do something that's going to go too far. He's willing to sacrifice anything and anyone to maintain his position at the top. He was chasing fortune so much, he didn't care who he stepped on. People who had been there before him no longer mattered. He, was losing connection with his brother. He already didn't have a great relationship with his mother, but he lost that relationship even more after he successfully got his restaurant off the ground. And I thought it was interesting. There were a couple of people there who also were just basically saying, "I think you're biting off more than you can chew. You need to slow down. You need to really evaluate what you're doing." But he just felt like because he had attained such wealth, it didn't really matter. Um, so it was okay. I think it's probably out of all the choices that we've read so far this year, I feel like The Delicacy is probably, for me, one of the weaker ones that we've read so far this year. Because I think everything that I've read this year has been pretty much 4 stars and above. And this is the first one where I was kind of like, I'm not sure where I fall on the spectrum of how I want to rate this specific volume. Yeah, yeah, it is. It's the pacing of it was very, very off because I think that the creator of this one really was banking on that reveal. So it was like we have this slow uptick to what is this really dark, sinister part of this whole entire plot, but it felt like it was just two different, like you said, two different paces. Um, two different paces from the beginning of the book to the reveal and then to the end of the book. And I didn't find the ending as abrupt, maybe as you did, Kathleen, but I think the ending was pretty obvious. It's a very, very grim ending, but it wasn't a surprise when him and his brother started like arguing. I was like, okay, we know how this is gonna end up because at some point the author has to connect with him losing everything. And because of the tension between him and his brother, there was no other way that I felt like this could end except that huge fallout and the death at the end. It just made sense because that was a legitimate way for him to lose everything. I did too. I knew Rats was not going to live because, and it was weird the way he fired Rats. Like I felt like I almost felt like the firing of Rats was a little unjustified because of the fact that he also had other staff that were not really doing what they were supposed to be doing. Like they weren't really getting along and they were arguing. Um but once he came back in the picture and he walked in that restaurant and he was like, "Oh, he's back. Like who brought him back after I fired him?" And then I kind of got pissed at him. I said, "Well, I'm thinking in my head like the more money you got, the less time you spent in the kitchen. You didn't have any hands in the day-to-day operations. You showed your face when it was most important, which is very much so, I think, is relatable to a lot of us in our job situations. We always have those people who are higher up who are not really doing the boots to the groundwork, but they show up when it's important for their faces to be to be present. So I was like, how in the hell are you gonna get mad at him being back in the restaurant when you don't even know what's going on a day-to-day basis? But you're right. Once he came back in that restaurant and he found out, I was like, he's finna kill him. Because it was just he already had a grudge or issues with him to begin with. Yep, you're right, Kathleen. He had it out from the beginning. He already had issues with him from the get go. So it was no surprise to me that he pretty much was just like, well, if I'm going to kill somebody, this is going to be the somebody that I'm going to kill. Like, why not go ahead and kill him? Um, which is unfortunate. And his poor brother was pretty much like, "Don't do this. Like, don't do this. You're losing yourself. You don't even talk to mom anymore. You don't you don't communicate with me. You tell me you're coming over. You don't come over when." I felt really, really bad for his brother. But I'm also happy about the fact, I don't know if y'all noticed this. I was very, very happy about the fact that when his brother went back to go see the mother, he recognized his mother for what she was as well. So there was already, there was also issues with the mother. She's very controlling, wanted things to be in order her way, her time. And I'm glad that even when he went back and um, he felt that sense of comfort and almost complacency and routine of being under his mother's household. And he kind of like snapped back and was like, hold up. Like, I see exactly who you are, like for what you want to do, the control part of it, how you want it to control me and my brother. I hate that he broke away from that and was able to recognize that he saw through his mom, only for his brother to do him so daggone dirty at the end. Literally the only, in terms of main characters, ones that we see the most, literally the only um redeemable character in all of this. I also thought it was interesting that um the chef, the brother that was the chef, Tulip, he never recognized that I forget what they're called. They're the guys who do like the scheduling and the seating and stuff, like they're head of all of the front end staff. He didn't notice that he took that bottle of wine that was given to him by that guy who came to them in the beginning and was like, hey, you know, um, this is the property that your aunt and uncle left, or whatever the case may be, when he gave him that bottle of wine and was like, I never would have thought that you would take this and turning it into something amazing. You and your brother should drink this in celebration. And he didn't even notice that that guy who put on that fake French accent went and actually cracked that bottle of wine open when that celebrity came. And that was supposed to be a monumental moment between him and his brother celebrating the success of their restaurant after doing something that was beneficial with that money. I was like, how do you not even notice that this man took this bottle of wine, this expensive bottle of wine that was for you and your brother, out of your office, cracked it open, and served it to the celebrity to make you look good, and you didn't even think twice about it? Like, I don't know. I thought mom was the aunt and she killed the husband. You know, yes, that's it, Jessica. To be honest with you, we never find out. We never found out what happened to the aunt. And my suspicion, this is just my suspicion. Um, I think the aunt possibly killed the husband and then tried to get away, and inevitably she's the one who died on the ship. Or she could have staged the whole thing, because remember, her body was never found. but his body was, but we never know what happened to her body, which is interesting to say the least. Um, but I don't know. I wonder, mm, and that's the thing too, they did look alike, but the timeline for me is what makes me so hesitant, I think, because did the two brothers ever meet the aunt and uncle or no? I don't know if they ever did, and I wonder how long he would have, had been dead. And it looked like you might be on to just you might be onto something, Jessica, because keep in mind now, when they found his body, it was already a skull. So that means that he had been deteriorating for a very long time. So there is a possibility that this could have happened a while back and they just don't know that that could possibly be their mother, because their father was never in the picture either. I don't know. They did make it sound like she'd been isolated, but he had to, I think he was decomposing. But how long does it take a human body to decompose down to the skull? Because there was literally nothing left on him. Like nothing. It was just a skull. I'm gonna Google that. How long does it take the human body to decompose?
It depending on the conditions. Have you ever read that book called Stiff?
No.
So Stiff talks about this farm, which they have farms like this in America where people donate their body to science,
Uh-huh.
and they will like just put a body outside, and see how long, and like in the sun, and see how long it decompose. Put a body in a fridge, see how long it can decompose. Put a body in a car, and put all the windows up. It depends on the conditions, the atmosphere, um, water content, the weight of the person.
Yeah, if it's in a casket or not, I'm seeing.
Yeah, it depends
So,
on the condition in which where the person died, often how they died, and where they're at.
well, we don't even know how he died. That's so we don't know. Like, I don't know. I don't know whether that was the intention of the writer or if that was a plot hole. Ah, because her body is never seen anywhere, like nowhere. And supposedly they died in a shipwreck. So who was on the ship though? I don't know. That's an interesting one. Hold on, y'all. I'm looking at this thing. Body decomposition is very interesting. Yeah. Okay. They never met. Yeah, but they didn't find his body until restaurant open for years. Yeah. The body format the FBI. Okay. Much a lot of tree composed down the skull just after a couple years. Yeah. I'm curious to know like how he ended up dying though. Like that's just never it's never discussed. We don't know where the father is. We don't know where her body is. All we know is that for some reason, bodies generate these mushrooms on this specific plot of land. And then it makes sense that I feel like she killed him because just whether the aunt is the mother or not, he was killed by her because of what he found, like going in the house and how the doors, the way that the doors were locking, like doors only lock from the inside or some that specifically lock on the outside. I was like, whoa, like what? I don't know. I feel like that should have been explored a little bit more because I was kind of confused on how it clearly alluded to the fact that they had a very complicated relationship and they did not get along, although the pictures that were displayed in the house and stuff like that illustrated something else, which I mean, definitely, to the point of everything that's looks golden isn't always golden. I understand that aspect of it, but I'm just very interested in better understanding like what the fuck happened between the two of them. Oh, goodness gracious. Oh, what the older lady chef was really the aunt. Listen, I don't put anything past anything at this point when it comes to this specific graphic novel. Yeah, yeah, because they had been because they couldn't they couldn't get a specific dish that was a hit amongst all of their customers. But the mushrooms were like the hit, which I guess is just I think the author just kind of set it up like that just to say that people will do anything to maintain their success and wealth, even kill if it's necessary. I think that's the point of all of it. Um, I it it was okay, y'all. Like this one was just okay for me. I think there was so many different things, opportunities that were missed with this one. Um, and I think me not being a fan of the art style really didn't help that much. So I think I'm going to stick with 3.5. All right, let's shift gears and let's dive a little bit into Harrow County, Omni number one, which was issues 1 through 16. This surprisingly for me was, I don't know if I was just because I was super invested in it, but this was a very quick read for me. Um, Once again, not my pick. Bree's more of our horror expert here when it comes to our comics and graphic novels. Y'all know I pick the fluffy not to say because I felt there was some social commentary in this one as well. But I know Bree is very tuned into the horror side of comics and graphic novels. So let's start with ratings. I think I'm going to go with 4 stars for this one.
I'm liking the story. I'm on page 68.
It's a quick read. It's not a it doesn't take long to read at all,
Yeah.
but I think the story is has so many layers to it. It's more complex than what I anticipate because I think you're getting one narrative in the beginning and then it just keeps adding on. And there's so many side parts to it too
I would
that
assume so.
it makes it very robust.
Yeah. Because there's like, I got a little origin of the tree, a little bit, not too much. Just like the tree had a split in it. Now it's
Yeah.
trying to kill folks, whatever. And then the witch, I need more about like, okay, 18 years ago a pact was made, like say more on that. And I hope this is not a situation where the white girl um is with the black girl who sacrificed herself for the white girl.
No,
Because I'm gonna be mad.
it's not. It's not. Actually, it causes, which is why I can't wait for you to read more of it because the abilities of these two individuals causes some conflict. It does. And I'm not sure how much they're going to dive into um, race relations a little bit, but the way that the black characters practice magic is very different. Um, so it's just interesting. 3.5. Person not a fan of the little side stories. The fourth frame was more linear, which is why I liked it best. Okay, Kathleen. So um you do more linear. I don't think it wasn't not linear, but I think that you get more than just Emmy's perspective. That's probably what will throw some people is that she's not the only perspective that we get to see. There's also a very um there's an omnipresent narrator, which I wasn't a fan of at first, because they're doing the storytelling a little bit, which I wasn't a fan of, but I think I'm getting accustomed to it. And now I'm wondering who is telling the story because I feel like it's somebody who is a character or we have seen is telling the story, which I find to be very interesting.
Man, I wish we were talking about crossover because I'd had a comment about that. So I'm gonna shut up.
Christine, I think I'm going to check out the Omni Volume 2 as well because it's such a quick read. But um, it definitely for me is a 4-star read.
Hmm.
This first one is a 4-star read for me.
It says
Um,
over three so far.
it for me, I think there's a build up to it that makes it very interesting. There's some interesting, I think, conversation, which I said there's a little bit of social commentary in this one um, about nature versus nurture
Hmm.
because
I can see that.
we're dealing with I don't know if you've gotten to this part, Brie, but there is going to be a character that is going to enter who is technically Emmy's twin.
I haven't gotten there yet, but that makes sense from a couple panels ago from where I'm reading. They were pulling something out of a tree, I
So
think.
it's two
And it was
kids.
two of them.
Hmm.
So I'm wondering if Emmy is a witch or a haint.
Which
Okay.
well
Because
it's
the
true.
haint that's not rolling around with his skin saying that she's under our protection.
Oh, but they're like the most adorable friends. I'm so sorry. I would never think I would say that they're like, oh my God, her Hank is he's so protective and so sweet and just wants to be her friend. And they do become, um, it's very cute. I will say the nature versus nurture, I think, becomes more apparent when you're introduced to the other sibling, which both are reincarnations of Hester. What I found interesting is that what I found interesting in that is that um I forget her sister's name. Somebody remind me of the sister's name because I'm losing the sister's name here. It was very clear that it was going to be a nature versus nurture thing because of how the two of them grew up. So Emmy grew up in a household where there was love, care, protection, definitely support from her father. Her twin, because Emmy was saying, like, that's not my mother. Because the twin was like, oh, Cammy. Cammy's like, that's our mother. And Emmy was like, no, I don't know who that is, but that's not my mama. My mama left a long time ago. And then Cammy was like, oh, I had someone who pretended to be my mother essentially, but she was cold and detached. And so when Emmy realizes that she is supposed to be a reincarnation of Hester, she's kind of like, well, I'm not going to do what she did. I'm not going to give into this negativity. I'm going to make things right. I'm going to help people in this town. Um, I'm not going to be evil like she is. Whereas Cammy's like, girl, I'm ready to slit some throats. I'm ready to play with these hanks and I'm ready to destroy everyone in my path. So I think that that was just a very interesting play between the two of them. But from one of the panels and situations that came later on, I can't remember in what issue. I don't think that Cammy is gone, although we're led to believe that she is gone. I don't think that she is technically gone. Um, I'm pretty sure that we're going to see her pop up because of that interaction that she had with that family in the house, and the house essentially tried to eat her, and she couldn't control the house. And I think there's a lot to be said about Emmy's ability to control certain things. And one thing I think that frustrated me about Emmy, and remembering that Emmy is younger, she's 17 at the start of this because she doesn't turn 18 until later, is that Emmy is still figuring out her powers and Emmy thinks she knows it all, which is, I think, going to cause her a lot of issues in Omni 2 because she doesn't really know how her powers work. She starts to see her powers kind of falter later on in the Omni, where she is typically in the beginning of the first half, she's able to control a lot around her. And I think that that gives her a sense of comfort. And then she realizes at some point that she can't control everything. And I feel like Cammy also plays a role in which she can and cannot control. Um, I thought that there was this, I don't know if y'all saw when Emmy was meeting with Odessa and her and Odessa were walking through the town and there were this is why I love the artwork in this. There were these signs that were hanging up when they were walking through the county. One was like, Ma loves Pa. And then another panel was like, Pa loves other women. And then one sign was like, Ma caught Paul with 3 women in a pool. And then the next sign was like, here lies Paul. So what? So with this one, I think I love when creators play with the idea that you have to pay attention to everything around you. Like all of the background artwork is also very, very important to the narrative. Or I think in that specific scene, it lightened up the darkness of the story a little bit because we definitely do get dark in this one. I think that um Emmy's decision when it came to meeting with the other entities that had the same, well, not the same powers, but her kin, her family. I was, if I was Emmy, to be honest with you, I'm not sure what decision I would have made. Because they put her in a very, very tough spot. But I think that that spot is going to come back. The decision that she made is going to come back and haunt her because Emmy can't reckon with the fact that half of the people in that town are not real. And I kept forgetting that they weren't real until they kept reminding her, like, you have to understand that your mother and father are not even real people. Like, these are people that Hester created. And I do like that Odessa highlights the flaws in Emmy and acknowledges that while Emmy um while Emmy is thinking that she's doing better than Hester, she's also making a lot of beginner mistakes. I love when Esther pointed out, like, hey, um, who we are as these entities, as these individuals. Um, we are not gods. We're not to be worshipped. We're not to be adored. Um, People are not supposed to owe us those things. And Emmy was like, well, I don't, basically insinuating that that's not what she does. But I love how Odessa kind of bounced it back and was like, but look how you walk around this town as if you're surveying your property. You're surveying and looking around as if this is what you own. And these people love you and fear you. And she said, what is the difference between you and a god? And I was like, well, damn. Like, because it's true. Emmy thinks that because people are friendly to her, that she's different than Hester. But at the same time, she has to understand that these people love her because they fear her. There's a love and a fear that is there. And I think that she's a teenager. She does not understand what powers and abilities that she has. Um and I don't even think that, like you said, Jessica, I don't think her family knew the extent of her powers because when they started talking about the woman that took Hester under her wing, and Hester was like, F you, I'm gonna do what I want to do. Um, I don't think they were even expecting her powers to be as strong as hers, but it's clear that they are as strong, if not stronger. And I feel like Emmy's gonna get caught up because even when it was a face off between her and Odessa, it was her hate and Odessa. I know her hate was only trying to protect her, especially because of the decision that they had made about Harrow County. But the thing about it is that when she stood there and she was like, "This is my home," like it felt very much so like this is um this is my domain. And I think what they were trying to prevent was her getting too attached and stuck in Harrow County. But I mean, that's all that Emmy knew. And so she felt very protective. And I feel like Emmy is stuck on trying to right a wrong that Hester created. But these people aren't even real. So what I think Odessa was trying to point out is that Hester's evil is so deep rooted, it's even in the soil. Like Harrow County itself is not real. Like this is a creation of hers so that she could be worshiped and adored and feared. And so how much power do you really have in this domain when you think about how deep rooted Hester's evil runs through? Like the soil itself is no good. So um I don't know. I'm very I'm very interested in seeing how she develops as a character because she is so young in this first Omni. And she's very young. She's clearly very powerful, but I'm also interested in seeing where her best friend goes because we have now these kind of like um, I don't like almost like paralleling storylines. So we have Emmy's storyline and then we have her best friend storyline, who is now connected to what I feel like is magic that's more um, tied to Black history. And then it's just a very interesting thing with I wish I could remember anybody's name. Y'all know I can't remember anybody's name, but the lady who worked with the snakes, who had a gift to work with the snakes and is training her now and passing her gift. And then when her and Emmy had that it wasn't a confrontation, but when Emmy couldn't control, like I think Emmy's going to need her more than what she realizes. I think Emmy looks at herself as this um as the one person in Harrow County that can control everything around her, but she kind of sees that she can't when there's those instances like the house. She couldn't control the house. And then when they come across the cornfield with the scarecrows, she couldn't control the scarecrows. But when her best friend steps in, she has a gift that she can use that does stop the scarecrows. And Emmy is kind of like, well, how did you do that? And then she's kind of like, well, I don't want to talk about that. And then Emmy's like, well, I want to meet your friend. And then she was like, I don't think my friend is really up to meeting people. Um, so I think that that's important to note. I'm not sure, Jessica, because she even asked that question. Because remember, she says, well, my grandfather was created by Hester. She was created by Hester. So, or he was created by Hester. So what does that make me? And Emmy was like, well, that makes you my best friend. And then it's just kind of like, but we never truly get that answer of if these people are created out of the soil that Hester has sprung up and they're not really human, they've had offspring at this point. So are they or are they not? And what does that make the kids in that example?
Hates.
Hmm?
Hates having hates.
That's what it seems like, but it's so interesting because Bernice does not look like a you'll see what I mean when you get to that point, Brie, because it's interesting. Um, it's weird the way that the magic works when it comes to Bernice. Um, and I'm not sure how that would work. because she is. I mean, they are technically hates, but they just don't look like what you would like compared to the hates that are in the woods that you end up seeing.
Mm.
They don't match those. Like they look and function just like humans.
I'm wondering what Emmy's like powers are because when she went back in that house and said, "Look, I realize who I am, but I'm not who y'all think I am." And then those men try to, or men hates try to attack her, and she killed them on sight.
She can manipulate. I think she's her powers are very similar to Hester's and the woman that trained Hester, where they can manipulate reality,
Okay.
which is an ability that's it's unmatched. She can control things, I think, within the sphere of Harrow County, but her powers have limitations. And I don't know, we don't really get a clear cut understanding of what those limitations are. But you have, when you throw Bernice into it, there's something there too, because Bernice, when she, what is a woman's name, y'all? Her name starts with the L. There's this woman that sits, that all the Black people in the community don't go talk to this woman because they think that there's something wrong with her and she kind of keeps to herself. Um, but when she tasks Bernice with going to go get these water moccasins, when Bernice catches the first one, she's like, my hands were moving as if they've done this before. And then what was even more weird is Bernice had pointed out her grandfather told her the story about this woman and said he was in the lake or river, wherever he was. And then all these water moccasins were there, but she was calling the water moccasins back towards her so that he wouldn't get bitten. But Bernice turned around and said, well, if my grandfather is a creation of Hester, how the hell could he remember something that he's never been there for? Because he would have never been a boy at any point if he was a creation of Hester's that just came out of the dirt. So I think that we probably are going to get more clarification about that in Omni 2, because it made me think like, okay, well, how could he have this memory? If he was never technically a child, how did he have the memory? And then it never really goes into the fact of like, where are Bernice's parents? Like how are these things procreating at any point? You know, we got the backstory with Emmy and her mom. Her mom real like they didn't have her. She was, you know, she just saw it as an opportunity. And what made me think like, how are they having kids? Because it's almost when Emmy's mother was looking at her in the crib, she was like, oh, um, I finally got my little girl. So almost like she wanted to have a child, but she couldn't. But when they were pulled out the tree, it was an opportunity for her to have a kid. And so I'm thinking like, okay, can they have kids or can't they have kids? But then Bernice's grandfather, somebody would have had kids somewhere along the line if Bernice is his true granddaughter. Unless, like you said, Kathleen, if Bernice got her powers from Odessa, there's a possibility that Bernice is also something of that same family as Emmy is. Um, I don't know. I just found the story in this one to be very interesting. And I was super invested in. I knew I was super invested in it because it was reading so quickly for me, and not like speed reading. It was just like, oh, I need to know what happens next, what happened next, what's gonna happen, what's gonna happen, what's gonna happen. I was just dead set on figuring out everything that was a possibility, and with all the characters that were being introduced. I think that the idea now that we have this family unit of people who have special abilities, um, you know, somebody who's a necromancer, somebody who's a boogeyman. I forget what his ability is. Um, who is able to he helps the living make what does he do? He helps the dead and the living, but whatever journey that the dead and the living have to make, he's there to kind of guide them through that journey. From the woman who creates pure chaos no matter where she walks. It's not her intention, but if she's in your area, malice and disaster are sure to happen. Like I was just like, now that these whole crew of characters are introduced, I wonder what role they're going to play in the next Omni. But then on top of that, they don't, the way that they had to leave, I feel like Emmy probably pissed them off. Um, and the woman that knits, like the fates. Um, I instantly thought about the Greek fates, cutting the thread, how she can knit and kill you by knitting. What a damn power! Like, imagine what
Well,
something.
that sounds dope.
Oh, listen, she'd be click click. Like it was that one panel where literally where he was like, knit faster, and all you saw on the bottom of the panels was click 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 because she was too busy trying to knit, trying to stop Emmy from doing what she was doing. I thought the artwork in this one was very, very good.
Oh, I love it. I'm obsessed.
Oh, the artwork is so good in this
I'm
one.
obsessed with it.
Oh, oh, that's what made me think. Okay, so that big dark creature that
Yes.
has multiple eyes that's in the wood.
Yes. What the fuck?
Okay, so hear me out. That creature has serious abandonment issues because Hester just kind
A
of
lot of them do.
Hester left.
A lot
Now,
of them do.
Emmy's coming in and trying to patch up those relationships. There's kind of a splitting when Cammy comes into the picture.
Oh, I really like Priscilla. That's what you mean, patching it up with Priscilla too?
Just trying to patch everything up. She's trying to she's trying to fix everything that Hester kind of destroyed in her own demise, right? Now, what's interesting about this one specific one, about having like serious abandonment issues, past that, Emmy's kind of like, okay, well, the two of us is not, we're not going to get along, but can we, like, basically, Emmy was saying, like, can we coexist? Like, I don't want to be enemies or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But when that guy that Bernice and Emmy meet in the cornfield, right? The one that deals with leading the dead and the living in the places where they're supposed to go.
I'm not.
When he goes into Harrow County to do whatever, and the rest of the kin, what they're about to do, I am curious because that creature turns around and says, why are you here? Is it Levi? It
Flipping
was
God.
Levi. Levi said, why are you, no, he said to Levi, why are you here? You know, you know that I know the rules, but I'm older than the rules. And it basically was like, you know better than to even be near me or even to attempt to kill me. And so I want to know, like, who is that? I want to know, like, who that is. The creature is the woman that Hester killed, reincarnated or something. It might be Kathleen. It might be because Levi was flexing the entire, from the time that we meet Levi, when which I thought was a very interesting scene between Levi and that Haint. And the Haint went to go, was, it looked like the Haint was about to torture that little boy, but the Haint, like, proved its loyalty to Emmy. Like, that was a very, because I just knew when Emmy woke up and the actual, not the skin, but the actual body was holding that teddy bear. Um, my heart broke for him because he was just like, I don't remember my name. And like I'm nobody, like I was like, oh, and it's so interesting, like you feel this kind of like emotional, like I had a mommy moment and I was like, this human has no skin, okay, it's a muscle and bone. And I'm like, you poor baby, I just want to hold you because you're panicking, your heart is breaking because you don't remember your name. um I thought that that was a very, very interesting moment, but Levi literally flexed from the moment that we meet him before that scene up until we get to the conclave. And then when they get to the woods and he meets this specific Paint, Levi, like the way that they drew Levi's face, I was like, oh, he's scared as shit. And so I really do feel like it's got to be Hester's mentor. it's got to be Hester's mentor because she's the one who set the rules for them. Because when Odessa was talking about how um, they got their powers and stuff, or like the history just behind them, she was specifically saying, like, we used to kill each other because of jealousy, of boredom, which is so interesting because it's like, although they don't consider themselves like gods and goddesses, I feel like they function, when I think of like mythology, they function just like them. So I wonder if there was some mythological inspiration behind this, because they really do. When Odessa said, "Oh yeah, sometimes we just killed each other out of boredom," I was like, "That's very much so like gods and goddesses mythology, like killing each other out of boredom." Um, but her mentor was the one who designed the rules not to kill each other, and Hester broke that rule. But then even they couldn't bring themselves to break that rule to kill her for killing her mentor. So I let me go ahead and just check out Omni 2 on Hoopla right now. Because I feel like every time we start getting into discussions about this shit, I'd be like, I just need to go ahead and finish the rest. And this time I'm not gonna hold off. I'm gonna go ahead and dive into the next one because I don't think I can wait, y'all. I'm pretty sure at this point, um, I may just read that shit tonight. I'm not gonna even front because I need to know. I need to know exactly what is gonna happen. Yeah, that scene with the kid really, really broke my heart because it was on two different ends, because the Haint had definitely been in protection mode since he met Emmy. It was very much so like, and it was even that charming moment when he was sitting on Emmy, like he was in Emmy's room, and Emmy was like, we're friends and stuff like that, but you can't just like be laying around the room all day. When she's talking to the skin, she's like,
Oh yeah, just past that. You
you
can't
can't be,
go
you
in the
can't be just laying in the room all day. Like, you can you even pick up after yourself? Like,
yeah.
it's sweet little moments like that where I know that like that Haint has her best interest. So when that scene popped up between the Haint and Levi, I was like, oh baby, please don't hurt this kid, because the kid was in the bed crying like, okay, I'm awake, you have to go away. If I'm awake, you have to disappear, you have to go away. And then when that panel showed up with a little boy in the kitchen with his mom, and she's like, you know, talking to him, um, I thought that he had tore his face up, but it literally was just a handprint. And the little boy was like, "Oh, he just wanted to know my name. That was all. He didn't want to hurt me. He just wanted to know my name." And I was like, "Oh my goodness gracious!" I said that, and then we switched to the scene where he's literally rocking on the floor with the elephant. I mean, with the bunny. I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's so freaking sad." It's so, and Levi kind of low key pissed me off because Levi was antagonizing the hell out of him. He was antagonizing him. He really was, because he knew that that baby just he knew that baby was struggling. And I don't know if that was to test the loyalty um of like his loyalty to Emmy, but I just feel like that was jacked up. He didn't have to do that, because that hurt my feelings. I said that poor baby did not like. Mm-mm-mm-mm. I can see why this was an Eisner nominated horror fantasy tale. I really do see why it was Eisner nominated. Um, it's interesting storytelling. It's very, very interesting storytelling, and I'm very, very much so interested to see um how Bernice and Emmy are going to kind of work with each other in this next, because
Her
I
sister
feel like, hmm?
Cammy is rude when Bernice was in the room when they're first
But
meeting.
she is rude, and I think that Emmy knew from that moment right there, and you'll see it as you go on. Emmy knew from that moment that something was wrong with Cammy as soon as she was mean to Bernice. But I honestly feel like, um, I do feel like Bernice Bernice is gonna play a larger role than I think what she was given in that first Omni. Because in the first Omni, it's kind of like Bernice is kind of like tiptoeing around Emmy. She doesn't really know how to feel about Emmy. And then, when she ends up meeting this woman by the lake who has this gift for managing these water moccasins that came from Hester, and they were infiltrating her friends and getting into their heads and turning them into something that was completely just not good, evil. And she's been managing it, and she offers to train Bernice. I don't know if Emmy and Bernice are going to have a standoff, but I will tell you that I don't think that Emmy's going to be able to manage anything without Bernice being present, because there's parts of Harrow County that Emmy cannot control, that she doesn't realize she can't control. But I think where she can't control is where Bernice is going to come in and is going to be able to handle things. Because the only reason why I feel that way is I keep going back to that moment when they were in that cornfield. Um, Bernice is the only reason why things did not go left. And even Levi said the two of you are a force to be reckoned with. And I think the two of them together is what's going to make them a force to be reckoned with, because where Emmy lacks, Bernice excels. And that's where Bernice is going to fill that gap, because I think Emmy is still stuck on, because when she talked to Bernice in the cornfield, I don't think she means to be um big headed or cocky. I don't think that's her intention. But I think because she has this gift and she's so powerful, she thinks everybody needs saving. So when she approaches Bernice, she's like, "Why didn't you just ask me for help?" And it's kind of like, bitch, because I don't want to always ask you for stuff, basically. I don't always want to have to depend upon you. So when Bernice was like, "All right, I got this. My friend gave this to me. We finna see if this is going to work." Because those scarecrows were coming, Emmy's yelling, "Stop, stop, stop." Nothing's happening the way it usually happens. Bernice came and threw up what she had, and then everything stopped. I was like, okay, Bernice has a gift as well, but I don't know how this is fitting in the grand scheme of things. Um, but I think she is powerful as well. And I don't know, I think it's going to take Emmy a second to realize, oh shit, also has this gift. Um, and like you said, Kathleen, earlier, when Levi pointed out, it's almost as if she got her gift from Odessa. That also to me is just kind of like, okay, so is there a possibility that Bernice is connected to Odessa in some way? Because Odessa's gift is related to the woods and all of the animals in it. And so I wonder how. I don't know. I think this is interesting. I think it's. I'll listen to extras of back. The Bernice is going to play a much bigger role. You can see it. You can see how he set it up, like, but we just don't know how. But I think that this balance of Emmy not being the only one to have this gift is going to be super important. And I wonder if the kin are going to come back. You all know Cammy's going to come back. Cammy has to come back, because when they were in the house, and it was so small I almost didn't catch it. But when the little girl was like, when they went in the house, the little girl's like, "There's this thing that keeps it." It creeped me out. I'm not gonna lie. Reading this at night is not the move, because I was like, I'm gonna dream about this stuff, and I really don't want to have dreams about this. When the little girl was like, "Oh, it knocks on my door and tries to pretend that it wants me to come out and play, and then when I don't open up the door, it gets pissed off." And so when Emmy went in that house, it was definitely a wake up call for Emmy. I just don't think she got the wake up call, because Emmy went in that house and everything. I mean, that house was screwing them up, knocking the daddy down. And the house itself, which I thought was interesting, was that Emmy was like, well, the house itself was a hint. It wasn't something in the house. The house itself is a hint.
Oh, you about to have me fall in love more with this comic.
It
That's
just
dope.
But it was weird because Emmy's so used to controlling all of the haints, but she couldn't control the house. But what weirded me out was this little girl kept talking about her doll. Well, she's like, "Bring your doll in the house." And the girl was like, "No, my doll said she's fine sitting outside." Now, I think at first glance, In reading that, I'm thinking because I have a child, you know what I'm saying? And that's probably what made it so scary for me because my child talks about her dolls. Like, mommy, give my doll a kiss. My doll says she wants a kiss. So when the little girl was like, oh, my doll is fine, she said she wants to sit outside. I think as a parent, I didn't really connect with who the fuck is talking to this girl through this doll. It didn't click to me. I wasn't thinking about that. But when that house folded on itself and dove back into the ground, and the little girl said, no, my doll told me to tell you. My doll told me that you would be able, that you would come and you would be able to help us figure it out. And when that little girl said, Cammy, I said, oh, she, I said, I said, Cammy ain't going nowhere. Cammy is still, Cammy was still present. As soon as that girl said Cammy, I said, oh my God, Cammy was speaking to the girl through the doll. I said, but how? But that house part was, I think that house part was so scary for me because when you do kids and dolls, I don't like that because I have a kid right now who talks to me about her dolls talking to her. So that
Damn.
the fact that she was talking about my doll told me, and I think for me as a parent, I'm so used to hearing that I didn't catch it. And then when at the end it was like Cammy, I said, "Oh my God, no, the doll was really talking to the doll really was like, no, I'm good. I want to sit outside. I want to sit outside." And I said, oh my gosh, it was, oh goodness gracious. And that house was brutal. That house was take no prisoners. Like everybody could get smacked. The house locked them in. They was trying to Emmy was like, everybody get out the house. They're like, we can't. The house has locked us in here. I said, oh my God. Oh, goodness gracious. Yeah, that house out of everything that we had seen up until that point, like even with all the other hates and stuff like that, I don't think I was really disturbed, but for some reason that house scene just it crawled under my skin. It was that, and then when I forget the little boy's name when he got stuck in the cornfield, I was like, oh God, that's my worst fear is getting stuck in a cornfield and not being able to find my way out. I just can't. It's too many horror movies with cornfields and getting lost. Cammy is still right there, and I promise you, Cammy, I'm waiting for Cammy to pop back up because Cammy said, "Listen, my mama may have dragged me, but I'm still under here." I really feel like Cammy is like the true reincarnation of Hester. Like, but if Cammy's powers can match Emmy's powers, there's no way that Emmy can do this without Bernice. I am convinced because clearly Cammy has some pretty powerful things behind her as well to be able to control parts of Harrow County that Emmy has no domain over, which is why I'm like that was so I get how
Damn, I'm mad about what I just read.
what
So Cammy is partnering with that redhead bastard, that man.
but keep reading because not in the she's not partnering, she's using him. So I think what we're gonna see, honestly, I think that what we're gonna see in this next Omni is Cammy and Emmy are gonna go head to head for control of Harrow County. But I think that what's gonna give Emmy the edge is gonna be Bernice. That's gotta be the only way because if she can turn like she's turned a whole house. Not there's an entity like Emmy had been used to going into these houses and communicating with these Haints, like, okay, this is the Haint's name, this is what they like, this is what they don't like, this is how the two of you can get along and coexist. She goes into this house and it was like, there is no control. The whole house is a Haint, and this is a Haint that you can't communicate with. And then I'm also interested in understanding that the huge Haint with the multiple eyes and stuff, when Cammy was like, okay, I'm coming for you, and that Hank specifically defended Emmy, it makes me even believe, like, it makes me think even more now, like you said, Kathleen, that that possibly could be Hester's mentor. Because Emmy was like, "Why did you help me?" And basically it was like, it's not for you to understand. Like, you're not going to ever understand what decisions I make and why I do things, why I don't do things. It's not really basically for you to understand. So, mm-mm. It was, the art style was definitely a little bit more chaotic in those panels. It was disturbing. The artwork itself was disturbing in those panels. Like, it's been a while since I've read like a graphic novel, and like the horror aspects of it really just made me kind of get chills a little bit. That's it. That's exactly what I thought about, Jessica. Please don't make me think about it, because me, you, and Mama watched that. And let me tell you, I like, just the three of us watching that together. I just feel I was so scared after we watched that movie. I'm not gonna lie to you. And I was in the kitchen cooking when we watched it, but I was scared. I was so scared after we finished watching that movie. It was a different. That was the one. Yep, that was the one. And I wonder if that was intentional. I don't typically like you, Kathleen. I don't like when they switch artists, especially in the middle of a volume. They'll do one issue or a part of an issue where they switch and it's a different artist. I typically don't like that, but I think that that move was very intentional. I really do. Don't feel bad, Jessica, because I sure enough was about to go get my I may have actually gotten her that night and had her purposely put her in my bed so I didn't have to sleep by myself. Because it was just so, oh god, it was like, it was a lot. That was a lot. But all right, y'all. I've been running my mouth now for an hour and 11 minutes. Um, I really I enjoyed this one. This was a good pick, Bree. It was a very good pick. I think there's a lot of layers and complexities to this one that I was not anticipating. I don't think the covers of this do it justice. The covers of this don't do it justice. Um, but it's good. And it also goes to show that Dark Horse does put out some really good content. Um, but Dark Horse often doesn't get enough, excuse me, credit for the work that they do. Sometimes.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay, y'all. Any final thoughts or feelings? Um,
I got
remember,
nothing. I'm on page 162.
oh, so you're halfway through almost. Um, yeah, I've been way more critical. Yeah, I think it was a good balance. I'm glad that we decided, because of scheduling issues, we were able to do both at the same time. Because they were a good balance of each other. I really do think they were a good balance of each other. I think that, because I read the Delicacy first, um, and then stepped into Harrow County, and I think I would have been pissed if I would have read Harrow County first and then had to read Delicacy. But next month we are reading Crossover, which Bree has already finished.
That's on me.
um,
And
but
I think you're gonna fucking love it.
huh?
I think you're gonna love it. 10 out of 10 for
I've
you.
read part of the crossover.
Oh, you have? Oh,
It's Donnie Cates.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Donnie Cates is I haven't read much from Donnie Cates except his Venom stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um and I really enjoy Donnie Cates is one of the reasons why I love Venom as an anti-hero.
Oh,
Even though everybody says Venom is a villain, and I'm like, actually, Venom's more of an anti-hero, and I feel like I got my love and appreciation of Venom through Donny Cates. So I've read a little bit of Donny Cates' work before. I've read a couple of issues of the crossover. I was collecting it at one point, but I stopped. Um, but I do think it is an interesting comic. But we're going to be reading volumes 1 through 2
Mm-hmm.
because I think by the time that we do our discussion, hold on, let me look at this first. Let me see. I believe it is only, yeah, it is only volume 1 and volume 2.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because it's 13 issues plus one special issue, and it was put on hold as of last year. Um, so we'll see if they continue the series or not, but it was put on hold. Which is always unfortunate sometimes, but I know that Donnie has a lot on his plate right now in terms of what he's working on. So I'm not surprised. He's doing a lot of things with Marvel. Um, so I'm not surprised that he would put that on hold. But we are reading crossover volumes 1 through 2, um, which is kind of very meta. If you've never heard anything about crossover, the crossover is kind of meta because it's about comic book characters crossing over into the real world. I'm sure it's more than that, but that's kind of like the idea is that you have them crossing over. So I'm excited to start from the beginning though, Brie. It's been a while since I've read the issues that I've read of the crossover. It's been a while since I've read those issues. So it'll be fun to step back into it. And plus I'm sure Donnie did a nice job with it.
Yeah, it's very interesting. There's a panel that I can't
Mhm.
wait to talk about because I was like, I've never seen that in a comic. And then I was reading like Snyder and I think it was Brian Vong um, reviews of it. It
Mm.
was like they felt how I felt in certain
Yeah.
parts, so that was cool.
Yeah. Snyder and Vaughn are two. You know Vaughn. Of course, you know Vaughn. Snyder is another big hitter in the comic book world. I still need to read before the year ends Scott Snyder's run of Batman, which is also pretty epic. Court of Owls is
I I think I either put it on a wish list, a TBR, or own it.
because I had Deidre read it, and she really, really liked Court of Owls. It's a very interesting concept and breakdown of Batman as a character. Um, so I really want to. I think I own most of his run of Batman.
I'm trying to see.
Yeah,
Well,
I do own most of his run. I think there's only a couple of volumes of his run that I'm missing, but I own most of it.
I honestly don't know, but yeah, I'm gonna try to finish. Um, I'll try to finish Harrow County
Hmm.
um, tonight. I don't know if I'll get to the other one. I might skip it honestly. Y'all don't sound very great happy about that one.
I honestly, I don't. I 10 out of 10 do not recommend.
So maybe I'll skip that one because you were like a
Yeah.
3, but the way I was hearing you describe it was giving 1.52. So I don't know if you're trying to be nice.
No, I mean, like, I do think in terms of like when I look at the story as a whole and in the commentary on the wealth, capitalism, downfall of people when they are consumed by money and power and wealth. Um, I do like that commentary. It's just not the strongest thing. Um, that we've read so far. Like we've had some bangers this year.
Yeah.
I think a lot of what we've read has been great. Um, and the discussions behind them have also been really, really great. I just don't think that the delicacy compares, and which is why I said it's for me it's a 3.5 because it's not that it's a bad graphic novel. When I think about it in comparison to the stuff that we have been discussing and reading as a group, it doesn't match that same fire as the other ones. So,
We
um,
get Chip Zdarsky in October. I'm excited for that.
is it the life? Is it the Spider-Man one?
Hmm.
Hmm. Oh, Chip. I need to go back and read Chip and oh gosh, Chip Zdarsky, and I forget who wrote it with him, but Sex Criminals. I need to go back and read
Mm.
Sex Criminals. It's a very interesting comic book series as well. But yeah, Chip Zdarsky's pretty good. He has a podcast where he's reading manga for the first time. It's very interesting. And people are like, "How have you, as a comic book writer, never read manga?" And he was like, "I just don't know." Like, so he reads like the first volume of series with some other people who are like very experienced in reading manga, and they would kind of react and discuss it. So,
Oh,
um, I've read parts of the what is the actual title, Brie, of the one by Chip Zdarsky?
Spider-Man life story.
So I read part of, and I have the actual complete volume upstairs. I read Fantastic Four life story, and I wonder if it's formatted in the same way as that one, where I you get to see the Fantastic Four through different decades and kind of their response and reaction to actual events that happened during those decades.
Mm.
So like the Civil Rights Movement, Vietnam War, World War II, I think is covered a little bit in the Fantastic Four one.
Of course, I like Harrow County because I love Dark Horse
You
publishing.
do like Dark. This sounds like, yeah, Dark Horse puts
Makes
out a lot of good stuff, but I think that they just, because they're not one of them. I mean, they're not major hitters. When I talk about major hitters, Marvel, DC, Image are, and we all know a lot of Image is former DC and Marvel writers. Like,
I like
so
Image too.
I
I
like Image. Dark Horse puts out a lot of good horror. They do horror, I think, better than a lot of the publishers do. Dark Horse has their pulse on horror definitely
I
more than
think
anybody else.
I think Dark Horse have some of my favorite crime fiction
Hmm.
and Boom.
Boom is good.
Boom have some good ones too. In Image, I have some good ones, but I feel like Dark Horse is what I gravitate to the most for horror. Uh,
Hmm.
because
Yeah.
also the Dark Horse that I've read and I've liked, I've also fell in love with the artist too.
Hmm.
Like, because it's not, I don't like, I've said this 1,000 times. I don't like clean cut lines and like straight stuff. Uh,
I
unless we're
love
talking
that
about
structure.
Saga, and then it's all up. With Saga, I can handle that art form. What's her name? Penelope? No, am I lying? Forget her name. The art.
Fiona?
There we go. Calling her Penelope.
That's
But
what I was gonna say. Penelope Douglas is definitely the romance author.
I
Yeah.
know. I was like, where am I going?
Fiona Staples.
The struggle. But yeah. So I do, and I also love when there's an illusion of watercolor, um, as an art form, like a medium.
I think that is watercolor.
Yeah, so that's why I'm liking Harrow County, and
Hmm.
also with Bitter Root.
Yes.
So Fiona Staples, yeah. Where did I get Penelope?
Penelope from? I have no idea.
No say, man. No
Yeah.
say.
Alrighty, daddy, y'all. Thank you for joining us. Remember, like I said, September we will it'll probably be the first or second week of September. We are going to be doing um the crossover volume 1 and 2. So do not forget. I'm sure some people will.
Oh my God, I have an idea. I need to ask you offline.
Okay. All right, y'all.
We
Have
shall.
a good night.
All right.
We'll see y'all later.